Hey guys, and welcome to the first video of our video series all about food allergens and introducing them to your baby. So 2 housekeeping items before we get started. First, these videos are a tad bit longer than the rest of the videos in the course because I know that this is a very common concern for a lot of parents, and I want to make sure I address the common questions and concerns that parents have. And second, I have a full page of notes here because I want to make sure I'm getting to all of your common questions and concerns, and I'm relaying all of this scientific information to you accurately. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm checking out. So now let's get started in chatting about allergen introduction to your babies. So the first thing that you should do when it comes to allergen introduction is make sure you're on the same page with your healthcare provider team. So chat with your pediatrician, your allergist, or your pediatric dietitian about your plan to introduce allergens to your baby. So what are the most common food allergens, or what are the foods that people are most likely to develop an allergic reaction to? So these are the big 8. So the big 8 allergens are peanuts, tree nuts like almonds, walnuts, pecans, pistachios, and hazelnuts, fish, shellfish, soy, dairy, wheat, and eggs. Hey y'all, editing Dr. Taylor here. So since the time of recording this video, a new top allergen has been added to the top allergens. So now there are 9. So the big 9 also includes sesame. So sesame is one of those top allergens you want to watch for and introduce methodically, which we'll talk about more in the next video. So those are called the big 8. So if you hear me refer to the big 8, that's what I'm talking about. So when it comes to allergies in babies, one thing that we know significantly decreases the risk of developing a food allergy is breastfeeding your baby for at least 4 to 6 months. Now, some can't or don't breastfeed their baby, and that's okay. So what else can you do to help? So before we get into that, I just want to say that regarding the breastfeeding of your babies for allergy introduction or for allergy reduction, the evidence is weak for doing anything during pregnancy and breastfeeding to mom's diet to affect the baby's risk for food allergies. So when I say breastfeeding, I mean breastfeeding in general, not breastfeeding from a mom who has a specific diet. So when it comes to reducing the risk for food allergies in babies, the research is really messy. While some research shows a decreased risk for food allergies with the early and often method, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, some research does not show a decreased risk for food allergies with early introduction. So before we go any further, I want to discuss the factors that affect a baby's likelihood to develop food allergies. So genetics plays a huge role in the development of food allergies, and that is not something that we can control. So while some research does suggest the way we introduce food to our babies can affect their risk of food allergies, other research and data show us that most of the risk factors for developing a food allergy are things that are completely out of our control, including genetics. So a family history of atopic conditions, which are things like food allergies, seasonal allergies, asthma, and eczema, significantly increase a baby's risk for developing food allergies. So for example, my husband has eosinophilic esophagitis, which is an allergic condition. He has food allergies, he has asthma, and he has seasonal allergies, and those conditions all increase our baby's risk of developing adverse reactions to food. So things like ethnicity. So some studies have shown us that non-white ethnicity is higher risk for developing food allergies than white. Male sex typically increases risk for childhood allergies. And then if a baby has atopic dermatitis, otherwise known as eczema, they're also at a higher risk for food allergies. And it's also thought that something called epigenetics plays a role. And that means that environmental factors affect the way that our genes are expressed. And that expression of those genes can affect the child's likelihood for developing food allergies. So the fact of the matter with this food allergy research is the majority of food allergy prevention research in infants is done on high-risk kiddos. So with a focus on peanuts and eggs, there's a little bit of focus on wheat and celiac disease, but the predominant bulk of the research focuses on kids with a high risk for food allergies and focuses on eggs and peanuts. So there's little research on other allergenic foods like tree nuts and fish, for example, And there's minimal research on healthy kids and the risk for development of food allergies based on the time and an introduction of solid foods. So while there is a little bit research, I wouldn't really call it substantial. The substantial bulk here is on high-risk kiddos and talking about eggs and peanuts specifically. So in the field of nutrition and immunology, this is a controversial topic. So we're going to talk about peanuts and use this information to illustrate information about the rest of food allergies in babies. So again, we're talking about peanuts first because they're the most studied food when it comes to infant food allergies, and this research helps us formulate and extrapolate guidelines for other foods and the introduction of other foods. So kids at the highest risk of peanut allergies are those with severe eczema and an egg allergy. So if your child falls into one or both of these categories, it's very important that you talk to your doctor before you introduce peanuts. So for these kids, we want to avoid a delay in peanut introduction. So a plan with your doctor or allergy testing may help you do that. So if your kid, again, falls into the categories of having severe eczema or an egg allergy, make sure you talk to your doctor ASAP so you can have a plan on how to introduce peanuts without avoiding that delay in introduction. So one of the biggest factors one of the biggest food allergy trials in infants is called the LEAP trial, and that showed that peanut introduction in high-risk babies was associated with decreased risk for peanut allergies through the age of 5 years. So that's early peanut introduction. So after the LEAP study was conducted and published, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease recommends the introduction of peanuts around 4 to 6 months for the highest risk babies, those with severe eczema and egg allergy or both. However, recommendations for this category also include a skin prick test, a blood test, and or like a supervised oral food challenge, which means they feed your baby that food in the doctor's office. Because each of these need to be conducted by a doctor, it's important to chat with your doctor if your baby has severe eczema or an egg allergy before introducing peanuts. Now, if your child only has mild to moderate eczema and no egg allergy, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease recommends an introduction of peanut-containing foods at 6 months. And if your child has no eczema or no documented allergies, which is the majority of kiddos, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease recommends the introduction of peanuts when it's developmentally appropriate and when it is in line with family and cultural practices. So for these infants, the ones with no known risk for peanut allergy, there is no evidence to suggest that waiting on peanut introduction gives them any benefit. And experts from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease suggest that it might confer some slight preventative benefit in places where peanut products are regularly consumed in a typical diet, like in the United States. So the one exception here is in countries where peanut products are not commonly consumed, and in these regions, it's appropriate to include peanuts according to cultural customs at an older age. So now the early and often strategy. This strategy, which is often recommended by experts, myself included, is the introduction of allergenic foods at 6 months and then the regular inclusion of these foods in the child's diet thereafter. So this is based on research from studies on kids with a high risk of allergies, as well as the understanding of immune tolerance. So when you have immune tolerance to something, that means you don't have an allergic reaction when you're exposed. So studies on immune tolerance in animal models show us the idea that exposure to foods at an early window, around age 4 to 6 months in humans, may play a critical role in building immune tolerance to foods. So with that in mind, one large study from 2017 surveyed parents of 5,202 children and looked at the timing and the diversity of allergens introduced at 6 months and at 12 months, and then they took these same kids and had them tested for allergies by a physician later on in childhood. So in this study, researchers found no association with the timing or the variety of allergen introduction with the development of food allergies or eczema. However, data analysis in the study was limited for kids with a parent who had food allergies, eczema, or asthma. So other recent research suggests that the relationship with food allergies and allergen introduction depends on the dose or the volume of that allergenic food given to your baby, which that big study in 2017 did not capture. And some studies have found a reduction of risk for food allergies when introduced early for peanuts, fish, and eggs, and cooked egg even more so than egg and baked goods. So by cooked egg, I mean like scrambled eggs. So the conclusion here is that the research is really unclear on whether early introduction helps prevent food allergies. It may and it may not, but we do know that there is not an increased risk with introducing these foods early to kids who are generally low risk and healthy.